Yo, have you heard of LinkedIn Learning? If you haven't, LinkedIn Learning is an American massive open online course provider. It provides video courses taught by industry experts in a variety of subjects. Now, why am I sharing this? I'm sharing this because Living Corporate is in partnership with LinkedIn Learning to provide diversity, equity, and inclusion courses. Listen, if you're trying to be a better ally, you want to understand better diversity, equity, inclusion strategies, or you just want to learn how to be a better leader, you got to check out the courses on LinkedIn Learning. So check it out. You can do it one of two ways. You can click the link in the show notes, or you go to LinkedIn Learning and you search Living Corporate. Again, link in the show notes, or go to LinkedIn Learning and search Living Corporate. I'll see you over there.
Hello, and welcome everyone to another episode of The Access Point. My name is Brandon Gordon, and who we have today?
Julia Rock, your co-host.
All right, Julia. And first of all, before we get into today's topic, let's talk more about Living Corporate and The Access Point. Living Corporate is a digital media network consultancy focused on workplace equity and inclusion. Living Corporate centers and amplifies Black and brown voices just as yourself in the workplace through digital media production and business-to-business consulting. The network offers a variety of programming, and tonight we're excited that you joined us for our latest installment of The Access Point. And Julia, what is The Access Point?
So The Access Point is a weekly webinar focused on preparing Black and brown college students and early career professionals for the workforce by having the real nuanced talks they don't know that they need. And so we want to give you guys the unwritten rules, the hidden conversations, the things that you don't know that you need. We're trying to give that to you every single week. And so I'm excited for us to reconnect this week because I think last week we had a really good conversation with Caleb Yates about, especially when you're coming out of school and trying to find a job. And so it was really kind of that core audience that we talked to and really trying to help give them some insight around, how do you actually get a job around, when you come out of school and you don't have any experience, because that's tough for a lot of college students, honestly.
It is very. And so what types of skills does a person need when they're getting out of college, right? Just not on the sense of like, what is your degree field, but what are everyday skills that somebody needs when they're getting out of college, right?
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned that because, as you know, I coach athletes, student athletes, and then pro athletes at the basketball players, and a lot of them don't have professional kind of work experience, but they don't realize that they have a wealth of skills that are still transferable to the workplace. And so some of these skills are things like time management, leadership, being able to prioritize, effective communication skills. Because when you're in college, you have to do team presentations, you have to, do team projects where you have to deliver to your teachers, or you're doing a case competition. So you're able to develop effective presentation and communication skills. Those are required for a lot of jobs in the marketplace. The same thing goes for leadership, right? Like if you're leading a team project or you're leading efforts on campus, you're part of a sorority or fraternity or a volunteer organization, you've developed leadership skills. And so there's a variety of skills, honestly, that even if you don't have formal work experience, that are actually transferable to your, to a day job or to a job with a company out of school.
So one thing I want to talk about, you brought up, I have stuff written down, like leadership skills and communication skills, right? So one thing I want to talk about really now in the 21st century, since everything is digital, those communication skills. So how can a person such as myself, right? Let's use myself as an example, develop those communication skills. One thing I like to answer my own questions, if you don't mind me. One thing I've learned is to actually talk to people, right? We live in a day and age where everything is convenient, where everything is digital. We can type it up on the phones and something's quick and easy, right? But you also have to realize that we're in a workplace with individuals that didn't come from the digital age. Like, you still work with baby boomers and Generation X. And so their mode of communication is talking. And so you always talk about having an open door policy. Well, it came from because we didn't have those quick and easy emails, those quick and easy text messages. You actually had to go to that person's office and talk to them, right? Mm-hmm. And sometimes those conversations may be comfortable and sometimes they're uncomfortable, but you still have to sit down with them and actually have that communication, right? So I thank you, Julie, as well. Like, what have you learned in your experiences for developing those communication skills?
One of the things that has really worked well for me is thinking about what I want the person to get from what I'm saying. Because a lot of times you get miscommunication because you're saying one thing and the other person is interpreting it a different way. And sometimes how you deliver a message, how you say things, not just what you say, can change, the context or the interpretation. So a lot of times when it comes to me communicating, it's like, well, what do I want someone to get from this? Even if it's from an email to an IM that you send at work, to a presentation, a full-on presentation that I'm developing. If I'm interviewing a candidate, what is it that I want the person to get from what I'm saying? And that helps you to be more thoughtful in how you deliver messages. That helps you to be more thoughtful about, well, what do I say or how do I say this to make sure that something's not lost in translation? And it's important because you mentioned the digital age. When you think about digital communication, it's easy for things to get lost in translation because people can't necessarily hear your tone. They're just seeing what you wrote or seeing the slide that you put up, but they may not be able to hear, the actual intonation or get some additional context. So it's so important to think through what message or lesson or understanding you want somebody to get from your communication, especially in the digital age when things get lost in translation.
Great. And so when we talk about things that are lost in translation, like what kinds of things can be lost in translation? I know some may be, I need you to do an assignment, and some people may not say, okay, they may be forceful. They may be, not forceful, aggressive in how they're saying, like, it needs to be done now. Some people may take it as being passive, like, okay, I just see the words, I need this done. They don't know if it needs to be done immediately, if it needs to be done now, if it needs to be done 6 months down the line, if it's urgent, if it's something that we kick down the road. Like, we don't understand, I need this done. And also, you can only get so much out during these emails, right? You can only type up so much.
Right.
You can say, okay, I need this done. And then you have to respond back, okay, when? What do I need? It's so many follow-up questions and so many questions that can't be answered just through a simple email, right? So you have to actually go to the person and talk to them and see what it is and actually have that dialogue. What you really understand is, and I know we're focusing more on, career-wise, not really talking about the skills, but these can help you as well. Talking to people, right, you really get an understanding of how they operate, number one. And number two, how to effectively communicate with that person, right?
Yes.
Some people may be the small talk person. Some people may just be, I want to talk to you every now and again just to check up on you. Some people just like to have casual conversation, right? Just to really get to know you. And when you really understand how that particular individual communicates, you then know how to get your point across through their receptive mode of communication.
Exactly. And I think we may have touched on this last week with Caleb, but I could be blending conversations. But one of the most important relationships you have at work is with your supervisor. And that's where communication is truly, truly important because you have to understand how to communicate with your supervisor so that you can understand their expectations of you and that you can share your expectations of them and things don't get lost, in translation. Right. And so so the idea is, that communication and understanding how someone communicates, how they get messages across is so, so, so important. And especially when it comes to someone like your supervisor, because if you understand their communication style, you understand how they share information or their expectations, because, for example, Some managers are more detailed than others. And so if they ask you a question, you giving them a one-line response in an email is not sufficient. Whereas other managers are like, hey, just give me the broad brush. I don't need, or the broad strokes. I don't need all the detail. And for them, a 1 or 2 line email is sufficient. So again, it's learning people's communication styles that can go a long way, not just in delivering presentations, but also, like I said, in developing relationships with your supervisors at work, developing relationships with your peers. And so if you're able to do that in school and show that, hey, whether it's the projects that you worked on, or the fraternity or sorority you were part of, or the volunteer work that you were doing, you were able to develop those effective communication skills. That's something that you can leverage when you're applying for a job and showing, hey, I've got these skills that can be applicable to this role as well.
Yeah. And so one thing I've learned is just in life, when I was talking to people and said, why are you in these different organizations and holding these many positions? Why are you, and you're in college as well, you're very tired, but at the same time, they're developing skills to balance their time. They're developing skills to communicate with people, because different people have different communication skills. So you know how to talk to different pockets of people, right? So because if you're just centered just on one thing, you're not able to talk to a variety of groups of people, right? Because we're like a broad individuals. We talk to individuals that of our same hue. But when you get to the workplace, we don't have, most of us are sometimes, well, not with most of us, sometimes we don't have the ability to talk to other races, right? And we just have to get in the habit of talking to different people just to understand, like, there's people out there that are different than me. I have to learn how to communicate with them, because they also haven't interacted with somebody that looks like me and acts like me. So they actually have to learn and understand themselves as well. The more you're able to communicate and talk to them, the more that you're able to understand, right? And it's just over time, we Black people have been included in the workforce, which is a very positive thing. But people that didn't look like us, we were always excluded from the workforce. So when people like us get into the workforce, they have to learn and communicate, but sometimes they don't want to, right?
Right.
Because that's just how it's always been. I haven't had to work with Black people. I haven't had to work with women. That's just their thing, and people try so hard to keep us away from these types of things. But it's becoming, we see it all the time. We see it every day, that the more that people intermingle and talk and communicate, right, we're able to learn and understand each other. And that's really what it's about, just learning and understanding each other. Now, Julia, you brought up another.
Just one other thing I want to add. It when you can learn and understand each other, that's where ideas come from, right? That's where ideas come from. That's where innovation comes from. When different people from different walks of life, different backgrounds, different experiences, they come together and can communicate effectively with one another. That's where the best ideas come from. And so going back to understanding how to communicate with people effectively, and understanding how to engage and how to share ideas in a way that's meaningful, that things don't get lost in translation. That's, again, an essential part of being effective in the workplace and having a great job opportunities, because you know how to connect with other people, and they know how to connect with you, right? But again, it takes effort and communication from both sides. But sorry, I know you were going to go on to go on.
Fine. You brought up another point about leadership skills, and with leadership skills, what I've learned is that people need leaders, right? People need, there are different types of leaders. There are people that lead by example. There are people that lead by their word. People that just tell people what to do and be a leader, right? So, what type of leader does today's workforce need, and do you see leadership styles changing in the future?
So I think today the leadership has changed or has had to change a lot, especially in light of COVID, because at this point in the workplace, it can't just be I am leader, hear me roar type of thing, as it used to be, like my word is law, just get over it. After dealing with, with COVID, leaders have now had to become more empathetic. they've had to listen to their employees and better understand their employees' needs. They have to be able to put themselves in the shoes of others. They've had to come down kind of off their high horse a little bit to better understand what employees are going through, what their needs are. Because we're seeing people leaving companies in droves. And at this point, employees have the power. They don't have to sit. There are jobs everywhere. There are jobs aplenty. And so you can leave a company for remote work or flexibility. You can leave a company for more money. You can leave a company for perks and other benefits. So leaders have had to really take a step back and say, I can't push my leadership style on other people. I need to understand what my people need from me as a leader, whether it's that they need motivation, they need inspiration, they need empathy, they need understanding. And then I need to incorporate that and demonstrate that, but not just me as a leader, but also if I have leaders working for me, helping the leaders to get those skills. So leadership has changed, from what I think about the company I work for now, and listening to the conversations of our leadership teams, they're very different from what I heard when I first joined the company. A lot of, when I first joined the company, it was like, well, we have to do this because the boss says so. We just have to get it done. And now it's more so of, well, why are we doing this? How is this making our employees feel? Does this make sense? How is it impacting employees, whether it's mental health, their ability to be flexible with their families? How is it impacting their career development? So there's different conversations that are happening now because employees have the power and they're walking out the door, and leaders have to just more actively listen.
Yes, absolutely. And when these students want to show their leadership right on their resume, right? How can they portray their leadership skills on paper, right? So I use myself as an example. I was in fraternity, Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated, and one thing I put on my resume was actually I actually put stuff in high school that I've done, right? Because I didn't have any really engineering experience, so I had to show that what other skills that I did. So I put everything from high school. I was in the Beta Club, BETA, the Beta Club. And there was a community service organization. I was the vice president there. National Honor Society. I was the vice president there. When I got to college, I was a secretary in the American Institute of Chemical Engineers. I was in NASB. I joined my fraternity. I was the membership intake chair. I was the second vice president. I was community service chair, the dean of membership intake. And I show all these leadership skills to let them know, hey, number one, I'm well-rounded. I work in the community. And these are the types of positions that I held while I was in these organizations, right? So let's people know that I'm able to talk to different people in different roles and different types of environments and really show them, hey, not only show my leadership skills, but show them that these are the results of me being a leader. And right. that's really what it comes down to. Yes, you did this, but I did community service chair. I told them, hey, I got this many. My organization got an award for most community service hours that year, right? When I was the chair, when I was membership intake chair, my pledgees, they learned these types of things. They scored this, and they were able to recruit more individuals for our fraternity. When I was doing my senior project, we got an A in a course both semesters. Well, how do we do that? I planned to organize this. I did this. I showed them my entire binder of my project to show, hey, this is what I've been working on, right? And I showed them, because of me being a leader, these are what the comments said from our people that reviewed our project, right? So it really shows, if you have a track record of your leadership skills, it really shows those individuals like, hey, I need this person because this person can be the one to lead me to where I want to go next, right?
Right, and if we think about leadership, right, in the workplace and what they want to see. So, like you said, you were able to demonstrate, hey, whether it was your community or whether it was your fraternity, because they're looking because especially when you're first starting out, they're not necessarily looking for you to lead a division. What they're looking for is somebody who is a self-starter, who takes initiative, someone who can coordinate, someone who has a certain level of maturity, who doesn't have to be told certain things. So your leadership, it serves a particular type of purpose. So, when you're first starting out in your career. And so the more, I guess, different contexts through which you can show your leadership. So perhaps you led in one way at your fraternity in terms of, leading a committee. And then in another situation, you led a project or you were doing something for a case competition. Perhaps you were still leading, but you had to do different skills. You were required to do different things. So it's not just leadership by itself saying, okay, I can lead a group of people, but what did it take out of you? What results did you deliver because you were leading? What skills did you exhibit as you were leading this activity? So I think, that's when you think about leadership, it's not just a single term. It's about what came along with that leadership and your ability to coordinate or to corral people around a certain objective. Or to get a certain level of results. And all of that you can show on your resume, even if you have special projects or things like that.
Now, I do have a question, right? And I know it's kind of, it's a question that may take some research on. We have to research later, but how can one person, like I said, I'm going to use myself as an example again, right? If I don't have leadership skills, right? If I'm nervous about something, if I really don't have the initiative to talk to people and have that charisma to have people follow me, right? How can I gain that experience to become a leader? Where can I learn to become a leader?
So, you learn to become a leader right where you are with the opportunities that are in front of you. So, for example, let's say that, leading at school, like leading a project may be too big for you. The question is, are you involved in any sort of volunteer activity with a smaller group of people? Perhaps it's a church activity. Perhaps it's a small community center. Are there other things where you're not in school and you have to lead? Another thought is leadership can take on different forms. Leadership doesn't necessarily mean I'm the front person who's speaking on behalf of everyone. You may be able to just say, hey guys, I will take the lead on collecting all of this research and putting it together so that everyone can access it. So again, you're willing to take on a certain role. So again, you're not necessarily the person to be the front person, but you're willing to take a certain level of initiative to say, I'm willing to take on a certain level of responsibility. So it's also not putting pressure on yourself to say leadership means I have to be the front person. Leadership means being willing to take this step forward and take a step out and saying, I'm willing to do this. Because then when people see that behavior from you, it's a natural they're willing to follow you because you're showing, hey, I have the ability to say, I'm going to take the initiative to take care of this. So that we're not sitting there amongst ourselves of who's going to do the research. Is Brandon going to do it? Is Julie going to do it? I don't know who's doing it. If you're the person who says, hey, guess what, guys? I'll just take this piece of research and now prepare it for everyone. Then it's like, okay, then you develop that kind of leadership and following relationship without necessarily saying, I'm the front person, spokesperson, I'm the leader of the group. So there's different opportunities for you to take on leadership that I think people have to think more holistically about, especially if, like you said, if they're not ready to take on kind of that front-facing, in front of everyone type of leadership role.
Okay. All right. Absolutely. I love it. And I do have one thing I want to bring up as well, right? So we talked about the skills aspect. We talked about the leadership. And we talked about communication. But how to land a job, right? How to get the job. How to... we're college, we're all college kids, right? We want to get the job, right?
Yes.
Where do we go to go get the job, right? So I'm looking at, I'm looking at internships, right? I have my sister-in-law. She graduated from Prairie View, in chemical engineering degree. I have a cousin that graduated as well with an architecture degree. And I tell them, right, apply for a job. Try to apply for at least 2 to 3 a week until your eyes bleed, right? And I was in a position where I was unemployed for a year, right? So I was applying for jobs 2 to 3 times a week for a year, And what I've learned is the more opportunity you give yourself to put yourself out there, the more opportunities you have for filling out job applications. I know it's tedious, I know it's tiring, but you have to do it. You may get more opportunities to interview, right? You can't just practice interviewing in the mirror at home by yourself. You have to get actually experience interviews.
Right,
so,
right.
I told them, like, this is a pro tip. I told them make an Excel sheet and write down the job that you applied for, the date that you applied for, and the results of when you got it back, right? So you don't have to go into the circular motion when you're just applying for the same jobs 3 and 4 times.
Right.
What I've learned is you really have to dig deep into really going out and researching my degree field and what I want to do and where I want to work. Go ahead, Julie. I think you're about to chime in.
No. So one of the things that I was going to say, because you mentioned about research, one of the things that's important is when you're selecting a field and you're selecting a major, you should already be looking for jobs. So the idea that you're waiting until you graduate to now say, well, what jobs are available in my field? Like, that's something that you should be thinking about in the selection process of your major. That's how you end up avoiding getting a major that doesn't have a real job opportunity when you graduate. And so the research is important, but then also in terms of where you go look for jobs, a lot of schools, they offer career fairs that are sponsored by their career services centers or sponsored by on-campus art organizations, like student professional organizations. They have career fairs. There are national career fairs for college students. Certain companies, they have career fairs that are open to the public. So, and I mean, a lot of them are virtual now due to COVID, but I think some of them are starting to come back in person because everyone's like, we outside. And so going to career fairs, going to get internships, asking your career services center, because a lot of these universities, they have relationships with employers. And so if you're like, hey, I'm seeking to get an internship or a co-op or a full-time job, leverage the career services center and the relationships that they've worked really hard to build, because again, they want to show the statistics that the school has a high placement rate. It's fun to say, oh, we have a 99% graduation rate, but if only 20% of the people are getting jobs after graduating, that's not really great. So leverage your career services center and the opportunities that they may provide as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So, it is really important, right? We talk about getting the career, getting the internships, right? You'll be surprised, right? I know there's some jobs that may say you need internship. I've had experience where they say you need internship experience to get internship experience, right? I've ran into those types of people before, right? But learning these types of skills, they know. These companies hire you for jobs, right? They know that you don't have any experience whatsoever. They know this. You should be comfortable with yourself to know this as well. Don't BS them. Just go in there, be yourself. Talk about your leadership skills. There's a few things I want to bring back, right? We talked about have leadership skills. Develop communication, gain experience in your career, right? Develop those soft skills that we're talking about. They know you don't have these types of things, right? We know you don't have these types of things, but we're trying to give you the upper hand and give you the advantage over people who are practicing these types of things, who are cultivating these types of things, who are working on these things every day, right? We're giving you these types of information to where you can bring these to yourself and really better yourself in the career path that you want to go to. And
absolutely.
And go ahead.
No, I'm just going to say, when it comes to your career, the idea is that when you're starting out, you're not going to have the hard technical skills of the field. You only have the book stuff, and the companies know that. But they can teach you the hard stuff that's at the job when you get an entry level position. What they're trying to see if you have the soft skills that they need for you to be a solid employee in the organization, someone who's going to add value, because they can teach you this stuff. So demonstrating the communication, the leadership, the interpersonal skills, the ability to be coachable, the self-starter and initiative, demonstrating those skills on your resume will allow you to get in the door because they know that you don't have all of the hard skills already. They know that. But you do want to try to at least get an internship if you can, because it does make that conversation for full-time jobs a lot easier.
That's absolutely. So if you don't take anything from this, right? If you do, of course, we want to make sure you get all the tidbits and stuff, right? Please take all this, share this with your friends, share this with everyone that you come in contact with. Hey, you have a hard time getting a job, listen to the Access Point. We're dropping jewels, right? So the jewels that we want to drop today are develop your leadership skills, right? Develop great communication skills, and do your best to apply for internships and jobs. And don't learn anything else from today's show. These are the things that will at least get you prepared for starting out your career, learning your career, and getting you to the position where you want to be. And with that being said, Julia, we had an excellent show. I don't know about you, but I feel that we had an excellent show.
I think so too. I think this show was great. I think that we shared practical tips so that people are confused about how to get a job straight out of school with no experience, that they have tangible things to work on and point to, and use your resources. You have us here. If you've got questions, reach out to us. Brandon's available. I'm available to help you, give you some more hands-on guidance if you need it. But I think we had an absolutely great show today.
We did. And as you said, reaching out, how can people reach you, Julia?
So they can actually connect with me on Twitter and Instagram at @TheJuliaRock. And they can also connect with me on LinkedIn. Just look for Julia Rock. I don't think there's that many of us out there. So.
You can find me on LinkedIn as Brandon Gordon. That's my real name. Everyone calls me BG. That is fine. As long as you don't call me out my name. You can find me on Twitter at Ghostface Sigma. You can find Living Corporate. You can find us on the web at livingcorporate.tv. You can find us on Twitter at livingcorp_pod. You can find us on LinkedIn at Living Corporate. And you can find us on Instagram at Living Corporate. And with that being said, please join us next week, 6:30 p.m. Central Standard Time, for another great episode of The Access Point. And with that being said, we'll see you guys next week, next Tuesday, 6:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. Until then, we'll see you guys later.
See you guys.